All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining FINIS Friday. This is the Swim at Home edition. Let me just adjust the videos here. I got new headphones for today's show. Hopefully the audio is a little bit better. Before we start, I want to welcome a few folks tuning in from around the country. We have Nadine Day, former president of United States Masters Swimming from Illinois, Chris Morgan of Crimson Aquatics in Massachusetts. In our own backyard, we have Carrie O'Brien of Walnut Creek Masters. It looks like my mom is on from Berkeley, California, who I'm sure doesn't approve of me wearing a hat on the air. Sorry, Mom, there are no haircuts in quarantine. It looks like a handful of our friends at Jolynn down in Southern California are joining us. We have Jim McCrae, the engineer behind the slide handle. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for joining. Please take 15 seconds and fill out the poll on the right side of your screen, just below the chat section. Tell us a little bit about who you are so we can learn more about the audience. So last Friday, we heard from Aaron Pearsall on our Silver Lining edition, and I wanted to kick off today's show with a quote that I think summed up the lessons from that nicely. What Aaron said was this: "What is sport if not a way to throw you into situations you don't expect?" I love that perspective so much. While we're all faced with unexpected circumstances right now, how can we take advantage of it while we're stuck here on dry land? What should we be doing to stay sane, stay fit, stay connected? We want to give some real examples today of things you can do at home right now. We're going to talk to a real leader in the field of virtual training. And for our innovation spotlight, we're going to hear from the inventor of the Slide Dryland Trainer, who's actually going to do some live demonstrations. So to kick us off with a short story is one of the original innovators in swimming, the FINIS founder. Welcome, John Mix, in the mix.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. And I thought I'd give you a little story about the slide handle. It's a very new concept, and thanks for tuning in today and listening to it. When Jim and Charlie brought it to our office and talked to us about it, there was just enough uniqueness to it that we gave it that that gut feeling that says, maybe we should ask a few others and maybe we should experiment with this and see if it works. And I go back to and what's going to become of it? Well, we don't really know. So I thought I'd tell you the story of our Snorkel. Coming back from Europe, there's this sport called fin swimming, and they would literally take a plastic tube without a mouthpiece, and they would attach it with a rubber band to their head, and they would use it in fin swimming. And after Pablo and I did that monofin, the next thing on that list was, do we think that the swimming community would adapt to something? And you know what? We'll call it a center mount snorkel. We'll call it a swimmer snorkel. And the gut check was, I think there's a lot of value to it. So we went the old route, and we stuffed hot Teflon down sprinkler pipe, and we bent the sprinkler pipes, but we put a mouthpiece on it. We made a little head bracket, and we sold bent pieces of sprinkler tube for $30 for a good 6 months, and everyone was buying them. And we thought, what we didn't know is all the different ways people would use them. And today we all know it's really paramount in our sport. People train with a front snorkel, and that's, it came through a lot of experimentation and a lot of how will they use it. So I think this product is really enlightening. I look forward to hearing more about our slide handle, and I think it will show many different faces and lives over the next 6 months as we learn how people might just use this product that's very different. Thank you for signing in.
That's great. Thanks, John. So I'd like to introduce our first guest. In 2011, Chris Ritter founded Ritter Performance Sports to help swimmers go faster and coaches get better. Chris trained professionals leading into the 2008 Olympic Games, including Cullen Jones, who was part of the famous 4x100 freestyle relay anchored by Jason Lezak. And Chris has built up a virtual training platform for swimmers and coaches. And there are two words there that stand out: virtual training. I don't think anything could be more relevant to this conversation right now. So with that, I'd like to welcome Chris. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. John, thanks for having us. And I'm excited, too, to see how the slide handle evolves as well. That's really cool to hear the origin story of the Snorkel. That's really cool.
That's great. I know. I mean, John's a true entrepreneur, and we love tinkering. We also love what you're doing over there at Ritter Performance Sports. I'm sure you're busy. Is business booming, Chris?
We have not been busier the last 2 weeks than in a long time, trying to onboard teams, individuals. It's been cool too, because the teams we have been working with, they're like, Chris, we're already glad we were with you, because now we're just changing the workouts to, okay, the kids are at home with minimal equipment, whereas other coaches are scrambling, trying to make sure they have something structured for their kids, right? And so, yeah, it's been interesting to say the least, but I'm glad we're in a position that we can help, right? Like, and that's the biggest thing. With no one really knows what this is going to look like going forward, and you can't plan for stuff like this, but yeah, it's funny to think how long ago we started online training. And I remember for me to have to explain it to people a couple of times, like, so like you're not there, and you're like, like, how does that work? And so now we're at the point where, of course, like that's what everybody's doing now when everybody's at stay-at-home orders and stuff like that.
Right, you're a pioneer. That's great. So you're in touch all day long with coaches and swimmers. So what are you seeing out there? How are people staying sane, fit, connected? What's going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think I've challenged the coaches that we have a lot of contact with through the Hive and the mentorship program, specifically where I work with Paul Yetter. And I kind of challenged Paul like a week or two ago. We had a conversation where, he could see the round the wall, like his group only had another week or so in the water. And I was like, we need to really challenge coaches. This is going to be the longest time they're probably not going to be on deck in their career outside of taking, a long hiatus or something like that. And so I know every season coaches kind of sit down, they do the season plan, right? Okay, what are my big meets? Or maybe every quad, they kind of, plan out the 4 years. And I challenged Paul, I said, how can we zoom out to 100 times that? And so this week we talked to a lot of coaches, like, why do you like to coach? Like, what part does that bring value to your life? And we want to ask like some big level questions and use this time away from their regular routine to kind of think about that. And then over the next few weeks, we're going to start to piece that together of, okay, well, what does that look like on a daily basis for me? And a lot of that talk was about self-care. And yeah, we're all swim nerds. Like, that's why you're a coach, right? Like, I mean, a lot of coaches are like ready to get back on the deck, and that's great. That probably tells you you're in the right profession, but that's not in your control right now. So what can you control? And we've kind of split up to, okay, you could definitely, nerd out on swimming, go through YouTube. And, there's one coach I follow down in Georgia. He's posting like a Olympic swim race every day on Instagram, so it's cool to see the old race and stuff like that. So absolutely have more time to nerd out. But then there are other times where you should be doing stuff that maybe you haven't done in years because you've just been grinding so much as a coach in particular. I know myself, and, I bought electric guitars for me and my son, and I wanted to do that. And so I'm hoping now the next few weeks, like, let's like actually start to learn that, right? But, things slow down a little bit. And so I think there's a balance of things that are non-swimming and what can just bring you more joy in your life, whatever that looks like for anybody, right? And, that probably looks different for people in New York City that can't leave their apartment at all versus in Charlotte. We could still kind of walk around the neighborhood and, do some hikes on the trail or something like that. But you can also have time to nerd out on swimming, but I don't think it should be all one or the other with that. And, who knows how long this is going to last for a lot of us.
Right. And I know you have some good advice for folks about just finding a routine. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about some recommendations you have for swimmers or coaches who might be a little bit lost being off a pool deck. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I'll have to give credit to my wife for this too. So she's a lawyer, and she is not used to working from home. She goes to the office, she goes to other municipalities, does big boss stuff. And when we first realized like she's, not going to go to her office anymore, she was like, hey, look, we should probably do a regular schedule. Like, let's wake up semi-early. So we're waking up at 7 a.m. pretty much every day. We had this little kettlebell workout that we were doing together for the last few months, since essentially the start of the year, where it takes us about 30, 40 minutes in my home office here. And from the get-go, we were like, okay, let's start that. So at least our day gets started. And then we both go off in our own directions to do work, or, help with the kid when he's doing schoolwork and stuff like that. And I think that has helped us keep our sanity in terms of, not letting days waste away and still be productive. And especially both of us still have to, have some kind of balance of making sure we're doing work, but then also relaxing a little bit too. And so I think that that's helped, that we already kind of had in-home fitness routines that we could do. And that kind of makes sure like we're staying healthy, we're doing, the best we can, right? Because staying active, just being able to move around. And even if we don't have a lot of space, like there's not a lot of space in our home office, but we've made it work. And I think that's really helped with just the mental headspace I've had the last few weeks.
100%. That makes a lot of sense. So why don't you tell some of the folks about the teams you work with, and give people a sense of how they might be able to work with you if they're interested, and maybe give a brief overview of your business.
Yeah, so it's really cool. We now literally work with teams all over the world. About 6 months ago, we got a team in Singapore area, international school. So you think about like what bowls is in America. We connected with a swim coach out there that's coaching in an international school. I'm pretty sure she's actually Canadian and in Singapore there, and she connected with us like, Chris, I don't have a lot of space. I know dryland's important, but as most coaches are going to say, that's not my specialty. I know what to do in the water, but I don't know what to do on land. And even with basically a 12-hour time difference, like we're still able to communicate with her, get workouts to her. And she even actually commented in the last few days, like, she's so thankful for like the mentorship stuff that we're doing, because she's a part of that too, where, she wanted to do some internships, but who knows what that's going to look like in the next few months for her. And so now she's like, well, I'm going to take advantage of this as much as I can of just connecting with other coaches. So, we work all the way with, clubs, usually like 11 and 12-year-olds are probably the youngest we go. Maybe sometimes we'll put together a simple kind of 10 and under program. It looks a little bit more like, what PE used to be in schools, right? And then all the way up to, we've had Division I collegiate programs work with us now, where honestly, they just trusted us to do better with their athletes than their strength coaches there at the university. That's been really humbling to see, like, we're making an impact with that. And I think the cool thing is, the longer the coaches are with us, the more they're like, man, Chris, they're like, this is really the secret sauce to our program. Like, they know how to train. And I feel like almost every swim coach, they can hang their hat on, whether it's technique or training or some combination of that. They know how to get it done in the pool on some level. And especially if you've been coaching for any length of time, that has to be the case. You wouldn't be a coach and have no success for 5 or 6 years, right? And so they know how to be successful in the pool, but a lot of them have that missing link of, okay, well, how do I connect it on land? And whether that be what to do, how to structure it. And so we will work with that coach and say, okay, what's your season plan? Okay, you're going to have higher volume these weeks. We need to adjust what we're doing on land. Okay, this is when you're coming back from your championship meet. This is how we should get them back on land and ramp it up as well. And especially around taper time, we have lots of conversations with the coaches of how to deal with that. And almost every first season the coaches with us, they're just like, Chris, the results are incredible. And again, they were already doing good stuff. And so we're just able to kind of maximize what they're doing because we have that missing piece of the dryland component for them.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I swam D1 college, and, our program was fine. It was adequate, but it wasn't customized to swimming. We had our football coach who did our dryland. And I just remember thinking that was a little disappointing. And so I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And I think it couldn't be more relevant right now. You and I had a really interesting conversation the other day about everything that's going on and how it's really kind of a forced experiment, having people out of the water for so long. This is going to be a really long stretch. And what are some of the things you think we're going to learn from this as people eventually get back in the water, whenever that is? Fingers crossed it's soon. But you have folks who aren't doing. I think you had some statistic on the number of strokes an average swimmer takes each month.
Yeah.
And they're not doing that. And what kind of opportunities are there? Tell us a little bit about that experiment.
Yeah, so I did a presentation, a webinar last week. I'm going to pull up the number real fast so I get it. Yeah. So if you take, and what the premise of the webinar was is, I was just seeing all these workouts float around social media. And I know coaches are well-intentioned, so don't hear me try to disparage that fact. But when I saw what was going around, I'm just like, guys, like, we're just missing the boat here on this. Okay. Like, I think we can do better when it comes to these workouts. And my number one thing was, this is going to be the longest stretch of time swimmers are out of the water, right? So what is the number one key that could probably change that anyone can do? And I think it comes down to shoulder mobility and increasing flexibility on that. So I did a quick calculation. And if you say an average swimmer is taking 14 strokes a lap, and I know some coaches are like, if my swimmer's taking 14, it's a bad day, right? Like, they want to close to 10, 12, and then I was going to take more. But let's just say average of 14. And they do 6 practices a week. In the course of a week, that's 13,000 strokes plus. In the course of a month, that's 57,000 strokes. You go 2 months, 115,000 strokes. So if you think about that, and just if that's a constant, and then you say, oh, okay, we're going to try to increase shoulder mobility, like, good luck. That's like an uphill battle and a constant tug of war all the time, and one that we specifically try to program for and account for. So now, all of a sudden, through no fault of anybody's, no choice of anybody, that is now out of the equation. You don't have to worry about fighting against 100,000 strokes, against trying to get some increased in flexibility and mobility around the shoulder. And I bet that if swimmers just did a couple of exercises, stretches, we went over a few weeks ago in the webinar, that if they come back and they can get a better angle of attack, a little bit better freedom of motion through the shoulder. I mean, think about how many coaches are, yelling blue in the face, God, get your catch better. You're losing your catch. Well, if we were able to fix that with some mobility and flexibility drills over this break, which takes no equipment, it takes a couple minutes. And even in the webinar, when I was setting up, I was making sure like the shot was getting me where I was. And I was just doing a couple, all right, it sees me in the shot. And then I would come back. And I only did like 3 or 4 reps. When I came back, I had already increased a couple degrees in a lot of the movement. And so it doesn't take that much at all. And I feel coaches automatically go to, okay, we're not in the water for 2 hours a day. I need dry land for an hour plus a day, right? Because I need to make up for something. And I feel they're skipping over one of the biggest things they could do is just a couple simple mobility drills. And boom, if your swimmers did that religiously for the next however long we're out, and all of them come back with better catches, I feel that's better than any miss on the aerobic base we're going to get in the next few weeks. And you're going to be able to catch that up easy because you know how to coach, you know how to get them fit. But you're not having to fight that battle against 100,000 strokes in a couple of weeks, when it comes to always bearing down the shoulder, having less flexibility, having rounded shoulders. So, yeah, I think, and then it'll be interesting to see how do programs play out once they come back, right? Our coach is going to be surprised, like, oh, wow, it's only a few weeks in. And who knows? No one knows, because I don't think anybody has been through something like this where swimmers on a mass scale, are out of the water. I think it's actually going to be interesting. I don't even know if anybody started talking about this, but the Olympic trial standards. It'd be interesting to see if they do anything with that, because it already was a pretty big meet. And I think they already, once again, put the standards where they thought it was going to be pretty fast and probably overshot a little bit with how many people ended up making it. You give them a whole nother year, it'll kind of be interesting to see what happens with that too.
100%. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, the thing I come back to is sleep and being overtrained. I mean, I think there are a lot of people in the sport who feel that this is a problem in swimming, is that swimmers swim too much. And so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Quinn, when I was having talks with Paul, that's what he said. He's like, man, my teenage boys, I bet they're going to come back stronger than ever just because they're getting more sleep. He's like, I bet they're going to, grow a little bit more because we're not doing however many practices a week. And you just think about the growth hormones and all that stuff that's naturally happening. And chances are they're probably sleeping a lot better on average these last few weeks. If life is somewhat normal for them, right? That they're probably getting better sleep quality-wise and quantity-wise than in their regular day going to school and practice.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So, Chris, why don't you tell us a few stretches or exercises that you're recommending right now? Are you going to actually demonstrate for us?
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Let me make sure I've done this a couple times now, so I think I have the setup right. Okay. All right. So this is not required, but it's just helpful if you have a yoga block. So again, not required, but it just helps to kind of a little bit get in the position. And Quinn, you're in my ears, so you guys can still see me okay, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So all I'm doing is just in a kneeling position. The outside leg is the one up, and then I just put the yoga block into the wall here, okay? And then I'm just gonna have my arms out here, and I'm just letting this arm go as far back as I can, but keeping the other arm glued to the wall. So I'm not continually trying to twist back. I'm just trying to go here and open. And even just doing this a few times is really great for the thoracic spine in particular, the middle part of your spine where all the ribs attach. And we have 2 rules for breathing, Quinn, anytime we do this. You have to be able to breathe, or 2 rules for stretching. You have to be able to breathe, and you have to be able to smile. If you're not doing those things, you're not stretching very well. The other one, you switch your kneeling position. So now my inside leg is up. And this one's a around the world one. So I'm gonna take my arm up and around and then back. And again, I'm trying to stay as still as possible.
That's great.
And try to be as close to the wall as possible.
That's great.
And I think people just overthink stuff where they say, oh, Chris, that doesn't look hard, or that's easy. And that's where they miss that stuff. And it doesn't take that long. And if you just did that a few times, and it really, if you follow the rules of breathing and smiling, and I know they sound silly, but that's what stretching is telling the nervous system, it's okay, we can relax here. And if you're in a stretch where you're gritting down or holding your breath, you're just wasting your time with that. So if you really breathe through it, if you're able to smile, you know you're in a relaxed place. And for some swimmers, that's going to be really tough to be able to breathe and smile and do some of those positions. So find the range that you can. And you've got time. You know, in a few weeks' time, you'll be amazed. Even in a few days, you'll be amazed what kind of gains you can make with that. And I'm just afraid people think, oh, that's too simple. I need to worry about, you know, how many push-ups or, you know, burpees or whatever my kids are doing, because they feel like, oh, yeah, that's closer to what swim practice is that we're missing. And I think stuff like that is really the hidden key.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. So one question when I think about shoulder mobility specifically, I mean, what are some tools I could use to benchmark progress? Because I know, you know, if I'm going to do a concerted effort over the next few weeks while I'm out of the water, I'd love to be able to just kind of understand, you know, am I making improvements? Where are the gains?
Yeah. So with that T1, what I would just see, especially if you could have someone help you, like maybe just see, okay, how far back are you actually getting? And then at some point, are you able to touch the wall and go completely 180? No. With the around the world, you can start to get closer and closer to the wall. So you're almost touching, and that's a good indicator too. So, and maybe like with the yoga block, like you may have to start with it this way where the wall's here, your leg's here, so you have more space, and then maybe you can get it more narrow, and then more narrow, and then maybe get away from it altogether. And that's going to tell you specifically for that around the world one, oh, okay, I'm really being able to move a lot better through my shoulder.
That's great. That's great. So here at FINIS, we're in touch with a ton of triathletes, and they come to us with all kinds of questions and ask our advice. And you know, I've personally coached some triathletes, and I'm always shocked at how tight their ankles, hips, and shoulders are. And I think this now is just the perfect time to start working on some of these things. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it looks
all
like
their stuff is just forward. All their stuff, you know, running, swimming, biking,
right.
It's all just forward. Whatever we would give people in the gym or online and doing anything lateral, oh boy, it would get ugly quick. And
that's great.
I'm sure Charlie will be able to test the stuff like that later on. But yeah.
Fantastic. So I think we're going to wrap up this segment, but Chris, do you have any parting words for us? How can people find you and work with you if they're interested?
Yeah, so RitterSP.com is our homepage. And I was actually trying to get a page up before this, but we had a little website issue there. But at some point, maybe in the next 24 hours, I'll be able to get up a page specifically for this audience. We'll do like RitterSP.com/FINIS. And I have my ebook where I wrote about strength training for swimming, Surge Strength. It can be a free download on that page. But just go to RitterSP.com, any of the social channels. And if you're specifically interested in like a team program, because I know there were a lot of coaches in the poll, you can go directly to that information at RitterSP.com/team. And you just fill out a quick form, just give us some information, and that ends up being a call with me, because then we'll talk through, okay, what does this look like for you? And obviously, in more normal times, we'll talk about equipment and practice schedule and stuff like this. But at this point, nobody has a lot of equipment, and that's okay. We can still get started with a lot of stuff like this, you know, and other things that can take advantage of the time that the swimmers have out of the water.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, Chris, I hope you stick around for the next segment. And
yeah, I'm excited to see what Charlie's doing here with this.
Yeah, totally. So moving on to our innovation spotlight, we have the founder of Pederson, Charlie Pederson Personal Fitness. He was a swimmer in both high school and college. He's been a trainer for 25 years. And Charlie, you were also a master swim coach for over a decade. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I really actually enjoyed that process. That was fun. It was a very low key team. It was at a club, and not too many people competed. A lot of triathletes, but it was a great experience. Yeah. Fantastic.
Well, welcome to the show, Charlie. We love we love entrepreneurs. You know, entrepreneurship is in our DNA. I know it's in John's. We like to tinker and work with our Rockstar product development team, and you do too. And so you're joining us from your home studio, your garage, and you have a whole exercise station set up, and that's where you came up with the idea for the Slide Dryland Trainer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that origin story?
The origin story, you know, my business partner, Jim McCrae, is listening as well. He's a mechanical engineer, and we had done a project before together. I helped him with it a little bit. He invented it, but I just helped him out on another level. And we had a really good relationship. We liked working together. And in any case, I was looking up some exercises online, and I saw a person grabbing a piece of surgical tubing attached high and low, and they were just holding it and pulling on it. And I thought, that would be really cool if there was a handle on it. And so I kind of went into my garage. I destroyed a traditional piece of tubing, and I slid the handle through, and I connected it, and I got all excited about it. So I contacted Jim, and he said, "That's really cool, but we need to do some work on it." So he engineered it. We went through a lot of generations, and from there we discovered, hey, you know, we thought this would be really great for swimmers. And with my swimming background, and he's really interested in fitness as well, and he likes to swim and do triathlons. And so we started hunting around, and we found FINIS online on their website. They're very open to new ideas. And that's how we got to here. And it's been a great journey, very fun, and super happy to be here with landing with FINIS, because it's, like you said, a great mix. I think because of the innovation side of it as well. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I love hearing entrepreneurial stories of starting with just a rudimentary prototype and, you know, tinkering until you're ready to go to market. Yeah. So I guess it kind of begs the question, what's wrong with a regular stretch cord? I mean, I grew up with a stretch cord and logged thousands of hours doing shoulder rehab and strength. And, you know, I got in pretty good shape. But what are you improving on with the Slide Dryland Trainer?
Well, I think I'll go ahead and stand and show you. Well, you know, to be honest with you, there is nothing wrong with the standard traditional band. I mean, there's nothing bad about it. We all grew up with them. I use one. I mean, we use surgical tubing. We all use them. But the thought was, well, there's got to be a better version of dynamic resistance. We have to be able to evolve it. So, like I was saying before, the person was just grabbing it and pulling it around like this. And with a traditional band, when you're doing a lot of your exercises, I just recall from, when we were doing things, the band's always wrapping over your shoulder, or it's hitting you in the hip, or it's somehow impeding, and you kind of have to dance around the band. And with this, because of its 2-point connection spot, you don't have to dance around it. It moves around. It moves around you, so it's very freeing. So that's the main thing, is it really stays clear of your shoulder while you're doing almost any exercise. And this is great for swimmers, because we just don't want things clicking over our shoulders when we're doing, whether it's a strength move or a swim move. We just want our shoulder to be free, just like it would be in the water, unimpeded. The other point is, a traditional band goes always to wherever you connect it. So if I'm up here, it's pulling me down to that point, or if I'm here, it's pulling me up to that point. But with the slide, because it actually physically slides up and down, when I'm up here, it's pulling me here, from here, it's pulling me here, from down here, it's pulling me there. And the tension is very fluid and even. And so you don't get these spots of really high tension and spots of really low tension. And so I think those are the two main points. And that's why we feel it's better than a traditional band. I mean, they work. This is a smoother, better version of dynamic resistance.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I just think about all the hundreds of fly pulls I would do, and it was just super easy at the beginning, and then my triceps would just cramp up at the very end. So you're saying the dual anchor points actually make it even throughout the whole pull. It's more even resistance throughout.
It's more fluid, even resistance, kind of like swimming, where the resistance through the water, it's fluid, right? It's not real high, it's not real low. It is what it is as you're going through the water. So
right. And so Charlie, the handle is also different and interesting because it has pulleys on either side.
Right.
Why don't you tell us? And you actually have, I believe, 2 patents on this. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's 2 patents. This handle has one patent on it, and then we have a first generation handle that we also have a patent on, and those actually didn't move, and the band went over the top. But with this one, you can see, I don't know if I'm giving you a good view, you can see that they move independently of each other. And this is where I got to give the shout out to Jim McCrae, the engineer, my business partner. He had the aha moment of putting a pulley on the inside. You can see the red band clicking over the top of it. And instead of having this go over and down, he made it such that it went under the outside one and over the inside one. And that was the game changer. And, when we first met with FINIS, with John and the crew there, we showed them the first generation. And then we kind of parted ways for a little while, and we came back to them, and which was great. They were so open and receptive to seeing what Jim McCrae had done, because we're like, wow, this actually just changes everything. It makes the first version just kind of archaic. And then I think John saw that right away too. That's what I recall, is when he walked in and he says, oh, okay, I can see that this articulation and the way the band goes in and through the handle is just better.
That's great.
So that's kind of how we.
That's great, Charlie. Charlie, why don't you show us a few of your favorite exercises?
Okay, sounds good. So I got to give a shout out to Chris. I wish we had you when I was swimming. I mean, our strength coach was our swim coach in college. So it was like, never had it was basically a bodybuilding type workout. That's all it really was. Yeah. I don't even really remember what it was, but it was like bench presses and rows, and it was just general, which is fine. That's what we did, and love my coach, but it would have been awesome to have someone like.
Oh, I know. That's where I come from, Charlie. I got hurt my senior year doing dryland bench press stuff like that. We had to kick the whole senior year. Yeah.
Right. So, kind of piggybacking on what Chris was talking about mobility. So one of my favorite exercises, and Jim's as well, he loves this one, is just this working this back range of motion right through here. I'll tilt this a little bit more so you can see better.
And Chris, as he's doing these, if you want to talk about kind of what kind of muscle activation and mobility is going on, that might be interesting.
Well, it's interesting too, and Charlie, you could probably talk about this too, but even what I just showed you doing stretches in space, that's one way the body can kind of release. But now, especially because we have it's two strokes, right, on the slide trainer, Charlie, right? So because you can adjust that too, going through different motions is just going to give the body different feedback and input. And so then you could get some changes. So it's very similar to, like, if you've seen, I remember Dara Torres when she went back for the Olympics in 2008, and especially because I was back working with Team Elite, and she had all her trainers, stretching around and stuff like that. It's very similar where you could basically try to do something like that where you have assisted stretching to try to get through ranges of motion. And now that, Charlie has this handle where you can move all around, like, it really does give you a lot more options with that.
Yeah. I don't think I could say it any better than that. That's just it. It just gives you this nice feeling, and it's guided, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a nice guided range of motion. So that's one. That's like a great mobility exercise that I enjoy. Something to stabilize the back of the shoulder as an alternating shoulder press. So you face the wall or face the attachment points, and you press one arm up at a time. So now we're triggering all those muscles in the back of the shoulder. You can see that better. As you're reaching up, and of course you can do one arm at a time if you want. You want to just focus on doing one arm at a time. So
you can actually get a proper right angle with the handle.
Yeah. So the nice thing about these is as you get this in here, you can see the pulleys go the direction they need to go. Mm-hmm. So, and you get some nice wrist strength by turning the pulley, the handle.
That's great.
So that's a great stabilization for the back of the shoulder. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, no, I love it. And especially, how you're able to hook it at two anchor points. Whereas so many other bands, I've seen a ton of bands on the market where it's just one anchor, right? It's just one band, and then you got the handle. And this allows you to do so much more that you can anchor it at 2 points and slide through a range of motion.
Yeah. That's a great point. So Charlie, you have it set up anchored at the top and the bottom. If someone has a home, a home gym, or maybe they don't have a home gym, but they have a doorway. I mean, what are the creative ways you're seeing people mount this device?
Well, in the doorway, people will put like a little strap above the door and below the door and hook it in that way. And so then they close their door and lock it, make sure it doesn't open up on them. I've seen people put it on like a weight rack. So like a squat rack. So they'll put it up there with some straps, and then they'll anchor it to the bottom with some heavy kettlebells, like a 40-pound kettlebell or 40-pound dumbbell. So it anchors it at the bottom. Chain link fence is one of the best places to do it because it just gives you the multitude of anchor points. It's been really interesting to see what people are putting online and in talking with coaches. I never even, when I do talk to a coach and I ask them how they use it, I don't even offer anything, and they almost always use it in a way that I would have never thought one would use it, which is really cool. I mean, I love that part. It's like, show me what you would do. I mean, the things that are going around on Instagram right now. I'm just like, I would not have thought to do that like that, but it's very cool and it makes sense, but that's my hope is to give people some ideas. And then I just hope they take some creative freedom on their own and come up with some other things. And that's the hope. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So Charlie, the other interesting thing is we're seeing a lot of people actually do swim strokes, do sets. They can do an IM set, fly, back, breast, free. You want to show us what that looks like?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the key thing to know with doing the strokes is which way to hold the handle. A lot of times, to make it comfortable, it's better to hold the handle thumbs down. We call it thumbs down, or holding it thumbs up. So when we're facing away from the attachment points, so I'll just go through a couple strokes of each in IM order. So for the butterfly, we grab it thumbs down, okay, and you lean at the hip, and you can see this highlights how you can really get through and do your butterfly stroke, and it's clear of your shoulder. And then for the backstroke, you just go right into your backstroke, thumbs up for the backstroke when you're facing away, and you can get that nice. And the nice thing about being on the inside of it, you get this kind of assisted stretch. It's very fluid. Okay, and then you can go into your breaststroke, right? And then for the freestyle will go thumbs down. So with freestyle and butterfly are always thumbs down. And here, and people love this one because you can do the over water recovery part. Okay, so that's that. And then of course I'll just briefly go through the IM facing the attachment. So
I love this. So you could do 10 100 IMs on a minute.
You could say, I'm going to do 20 of each stroke, and just go through it like that, right? So then you can go through, and then you give yourself a rest, and you can go, if you're a distance person, you can find your cadence that you like. If you're a sprinter, you can go faster. People crank on them. I mean, you can play around with it. It's like any kind of training. It's like, if you're not sure what to do, go slow at first. There's two tensions. This is the higher tension, but there's a yellow that's a lower tension. So you can pick the one that works best for you.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, we're compiling all kinds of videos of people doing really interesting things with the slide. We had bronze medalist Brent Hayden made an incredible video last week, posted on our Instagram, and we're just excited to see what people come up with.
It is fun to see what people are coming up with. And I think that taking advantage of the fact that the handle slides up and down is with as many exercises as you can do is great. But if you want to do a traditional chest press and just push straight out, you can't. Mm-hmm. So you do everything a traditional. You don't have to be uberly creative. You just want to do a regular strength move, go for it, right? Or a traditional, say, shoulder external rotation. You can do that too. And the other nice thing is, it doesn't matter if you're 4 feet tall or 7 feet tall. It just adjusts right to you, right? So you come up to it, you want to do you just grab it. And I know a lot of people have given us feedback on I like how you have it set up and it's just sitting on the wall. So you just walk up and grab it and go.
It looks nice. Yeah, I'm gonna get that set up in my house. I can finally get in shape here. Hey, Chris, do you want to design a program for the slide handle for some of your clients?
Oh, I'm excited that we're getting it, and that I've already started talking to some coaches like, hey, if you guys are worried about being out of the water for a while, you need to be looking into this. So no, perfect timing, John, to bring this around.
That's great. Oh, John's on mute.
Am I live now?
Live.
Yeah.
I was only going to comment. I said when we first brought it out, we didn't know how people would first set it up. And we gave a set to Pablo, and he walked over to the chain link fence. And what he did is he put him down, at his maybe a foot outside of both feet. And then he went on a big, giant 45-degree angle. So he had him going this way away from him. and Pablo went through some fly and some breaststroke drills. And after a quick, 20 sessions with it, he said, "Oh my God, I'm feeling it." So, it was his immediate go-to wasn't straight up and down. His immediate go-to was at these big angles like this.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't shortly after that someone said, "Well, there's the bench," and they put them across this way, and they went through the motion, and they said it's the poor man's Vasa trainer. I mean, like everyone can have their own Vasa trainer at home. They just need anchor points and a bench, and they can lay on their stomach, they can lay on their back, and they can go through this full range of motion. So that's why I said over the course of the next many months, maybe the next many years, we're going to see, how do people use these? I think, when we introduced the Snorkel, I never imagined I'd look in a pool and have a coach leading 100 athletes through breathing exercises of just floating. Hey, we're going to wear the Snorkel. I just want you to float. We're thinking, well, what are they doing? And it was introducing diaphragmatic breathing, because with the Snorkel, they could shift that breath down to the lower diaphragm and completely change their body position. And you can't teach it without a Snorkel. So what will we discover with the slide handle? It's up to the fans of FINIS to help us determine just that.
On that note, I'm looking at a comment here from Kathy Schaefer, who just set up a slide trainer in her 9x6 foot pool and is doing stationary swimming. Kathy, we need to see a video of that. If you can send it to us, that would be amazing. I love that. Thanks, Kathy. And by the way, if anyone has any questions for either Chris or Charlie, please write it into the comments, and our associate producer, Clark, will tee you up to be next in line. Here's a question from Chris Morgan for Chris on mental health. What can you talk about in regards to, the mental health of athletes? I know you do so much more than simply provide dryland programs. You're almost kind of a life coach to some of these coaches and swimmers. I mean, you are, it's true. So what is going on in the mental realm right now with all the chaos?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. We were lucky enough to get Jacob Pebley on the podcast a few weeks ago. And if you guys remember, I feel he was basically the one that got everything rolling, where he was the first national team athlete to speak out and say, "Hey, USA Swimming, where are you at? Like, let's actually speak up for the athletes here." And I'd interviewed him before, so I already had a relationship with him. So as soon as I saw him post that, like, "Jacob, let's get on and talk about this on the podcast." And it was really interesting. And at the time, everything was changing so fast too. So by the time we had aired the podcast, USA Swimming, or I think whatever the next step in that process was of the Olympics ultimately being postponed a year, was happening. But I was struck by how, he was just focusing on, well, this is all I can control right now. So at this point, it was USA Swimming. We feel stuck. Like, I don't want to go, risk my health to swim. And I'd rather, and I think his wife is going through a medical degree right now too. So I think more than most, it was like on his mind of like things like that. And so controlling what you can control, but then also being, I'm sure he's still driven now that the dates are reset to be like, okay, I'm going to take a couple of days to reset, but then whatever he can do at home. And I'm sure a lot of other athletes are the same way. They probably took a couple of days to be like, okay, it's postponed 16 months or whatever it is. And I can't change that. I can only adapt to that. And I think just even letting that kind of sink in, and to know that, all right, well, how are you going to respond to that? And whether it's coach or athletes, I try to focus on what can you control and not get caught up in everything else, because it's so easy to then lose yourself and get frustrated about things.
Makes total sense. Yeah, I completely agree. Here's a question from Kerry O'Brien for Charlie. He's asking, during the recovery phase of the stroke, where are you getting most of the resistance? If you're trying to do a full stroke, it depends on which way you're facing. But on the recovery, why don't you talk about, and Chris chime in too, the muscle activation that's going on the recovery, because it's different than a normal band where you're just pulling kind of one way.
Right. So if we're talking about, say, freestyle, if you're facing it and you finish your stroke with the handle, you're kind of you're being assisted back through, right? So I got tension this way, and as I recover, I'm being assisted back. Now I can resist that a little bit, and then on the flip side is here, if I'm going this way, I actually have resistance going through my recovery, like that. So I'm developing shoulder strength in the recovery, but then you're getting assistance on the pull through what would be through the water. So it just kind of depends on which orientation you've chosen.
Yeah.
Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you're never going to be able to take water completely out and put it on land, right? But as far as the closest we can get and the benefits, and some things aren't going to be exactly the same. But I think the advantage of it's far outweigh anything else.
That's great. That's great. Fantastic. Well, I think we're going to try to wrap up here in a couple minutes.
Hey, Quinn.
Yeah.
I actually had someone on my team. They were able to get that link. Do you want me to drop that in the chat? Because I got a bunch
drop it in the chat, and then I'll also
whatever.
100%. Yeah, drop it in the chat so everyone can see, and we'll also include that in the show notes, and we'll follow up with everyone who tuned in today with an email and a few other links. We also have an offer for the slide for 20% off right now, so we'll share
awesome.
that. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. Fantastic.
I want to point out one other thing. One of the reasons that it took so long to bring this product to market is I can't tell you how many times members of the PD team were trying to come up with a way to have these rotating parts actually attached to a swim paddle. Because everyone said, does it feel wrong to be grabbing a tube? Can you put it on a paddle? And we played with so many versions of how do you get it onto a paddle? And in the end, it just doesn't work with a paddle. So we said, keep it in the tube, at least by anchoring the thumb underneath it. You give this full rotation ability. So it just didn't work with a paddle. So if we knew it wouldn't have worked with a paddle, we'd have brought this product to market 9 or 10 months earlier. We really went through iterations of failures. And we said, let's bring it to market and see what the market says. So it's all part of the process.
Fantastic. Well, that's what we like to do. We like to tinker. And so thank you, Charlie, for building this incredible product. Chris, keep doing amazing work at Ritter Performance Sports. You couldn't be more relevant right now. And I hope we can do some exciting collaborations going forward.
Yeah, and thank you to John for, John being kind of the godfather of all this stuff and innovations, and I appreciate all the stuff you're doing, John. It's really cool. Glad to be a small part.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. It's been really fun working with Denise, and I look forward to actually working more with Chris and hearing. I think that would be great to hear more about what he's doing, and we can collaborate on how Yeah.
Fantastic, guys. Well, thanks for everyone joining. We had people join us from Malaysia and Germany and all over the country. So thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you next Friday. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks a lot, Quinn.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.